Hello and welcome to Kirsten Safford Art. I'm Kirsten Safford and I am glad you're here. You know, I love solving mysteries and rocks are full of them. Today I'll show you how to face polish Gembone, one of the most mysterious gemstones there is. So if you want to learn how to face polish your rocks and gemstones, this video is for you. And one more thing, I'm doing a giveaway. It's pinned to my Facebook page, Dremel Lapidary by Kirsten Safford Art. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, then go there and enter at least one of the 20 slabs in the giveaway will be a Gembone. So today, before we get into the tutorial, I just want to spend just a quick minute talking about Gembone. It is fascinating. So Gembone is a mineralized bone, often dinosaur bone, which has been fossilized by silicification. It's one of 4 gemstones created from living organisms, the other 3 being ammolite, pearls, and amber. Gembone mineralization can be soft and calcite or hard and jasper or agate. It can also include pyrite, hematite, marcasite, and it could also be opalized. Most Gembone comes from Utah and Colorado from the Morrison Formation, which is a late Jurassic formation dating 150 to 200 million years ago. Several factors determine the value include intensity and brightness of color, yellow selling for the highest premium, green, orange, red, and blue are also desired. Red is the most common. Other colors highly prized are pastel pink and light blue. Multicolored Gembone is the most sought after. Another factor in determining the value is durability. The harder the better. Cell size and pattern is another factor. Always buy from a reputable dealer who has acquired the Gembone legally. So just to give you some information on which minerals create the different colors. The brown and reds are created by iron or hematite. Pinks are made by cobalt or manganese. Deep green is chromium. A blue or green color is copper mineralization. Bright yellow, uranium. A play of color is opal. Irradiated iron creates a purple color, and iron hydrate is an orange color. So with that, let's get started and get right into it. So before we get started, I just want to show you a piece that I have face polished, and I used my Dremel polishing pads for this. Now this is a softer piece of Gembone. In fact, it's pretty calcified, so it doesn't take as good of a polish, but if you look closely you can see the multicolored cells. See how they're red with a light red on the inside. This is not as nice of a piece of Gembone as if it would have had this nice hard go all the way through. This is really good agatized stone on the outside. However, the closer you get to the center, you can see the whiteness. That is calcite. So it's soft and then it goes out hard to the edges. Had this had a couple million more years, maybe it would have silified and gotten harder all the way through. But this is what the rough looks like. And I'll show you several different pieces here. No, I cannot tell you what part of the dinosaur this came from or what bone it is. I do know that vertebrae are the most sought after, but I don't know what those look like. Here's one that has not been polished at all. So we're going to do just a little tiny window on this. I'll set that aside to window. This one is another piece that has not been polished yet or windowed. So we'll go ahead and window this side. just see what colors are in there. That's one thing from these bones, you cannot see from the outside what colors you're gonna get, and you can get kind of an idea, like see that red line that goes right there. So we'll put a window on this one. Here's another one. This is a tiny bone. So we'll go ahead and put a tiny little window on this one. And if any of these are interesting, we will face polish them. And this one is a light pink because I can tell because it's already been windowed. I'll get it wet so you can see better. See the pink colors? Multicolored cells. There might be some yellow and oranges in there. And remember, that is all due to the different minerals that are in the silica when it is fossilized. So we're going to go ahead and face polish this whole side, and we will first do just a few windows on these guys just to see if they'll be worth doing a nice face polish on them. So the first step in determining where you're going to window a gembone is to get it wet. Getting it wet just brings whatever colors are noticeable on the outside and allows you to see through there what you might have to work with. So then the next step is to take your Dremel. This one I'm going to use the Dremel Micro, and I have the Easy Lock on there with the diamond drill. And as long as the rock is wet, and as long as the rock is wet, it won't kick up a bunch of dust. But I am going to go ahead and move my little tub of water that I work with over here so I can keep it nice and wet. And I have determined that I am going to polish the other side. Not really polish it, but just put a window in there and see what colors we come up with. Nice even long strokes provide a very clear, flat image. It looks like it's going to be a reddish color all the way through. Getting a little dry. This is nice and hard agatized rock, so it is a little tougher to polish through. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side to see if we get any other colors. Otherwise, this looks like it is going to be pretty brown. Cell structure from what I can see, and it looks to be brown, orange, and red. So we'll set that aside. Oh, that's loud. So we'll set that aside and we won't use that for this video. The next one is this little guy. Get him wet. Try to see where there's color. See where the cell would be formed. It looks like we'll be doing this side right here. Has a lot of hematite and iron in it. Okay, I'm going to move this section A good gembone is highly prized and is worth a lot of money, but you're not going to find good gembone in every bone that you go through. And again, this one is a brownish color. It looks like it might have a little tiny bit of pink in it, and maybe a little bit of reds. This one might be worth face polishing. I'm going to let it dry and see what it looks like dry. Alright, so this one's pretty big. I can see that there might be a lot of multicolored cells. And I'm going to go ahead and actually do this back side because it's nice and flat and I can see the cell structure. A good sign is it's very hard. It's not polishing quickly like the last piece. And that's big enough to make a window right here. We'll go ahead and get that wet and see what we can see. Oh yeah, that's got some pretty color to it. Got some pinks and reds. So this one is a maybe. We might face polish this one just on this side. It's pretty relatively flat already, so it shouldn't take too long to do. Would be interesting to see the cell structure on this side too. I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can see right now here. You see it sparking, that means it's a hard jasper. And remember, the harder it is, the more valuable it is. Because when you make jewelry with it, you want to have the harder the stone, the better, because softer stones tend to break in jewelry really easily. See if that helped us see any cell structure. Yeah, we got some reds there. But I think I will stick to face polishing this one. So I'm going to set this aside with the pink rock. Alright, so what I've done is I took this outside to my wet tile saw and I tried to get it as even as possible. One thing you will notice when working with gembone is there is a lot of fractures. These are old bones, they're old rocks, so it could be pretty difficult to work with. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to bring this side and this to a polish, and then on this one you can see there's not much of interest on this side, so that'll be the base, and then I'll polish this side and this side. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a rock wet. Notice that I got clean water. The hematite stains everything it comes into contact with, including your skin, so it's just, I like to keep my water as clean as possible. So all I'm going to do is go back over this and smooth out any lines that were left from the tile saw. Try to get in there and make sure it's nice and even so that it polishes well. The straighter it can be, the better. The less divots and bumps in it, the better. Notice that I'm moving in small circles. And I'm just working to get any of the divots out, trying to bring it all up to the same level. You can see right there, there's quite a few divots here. Just going through, getting them out as best as I can. If they're really deep, I'll just leave them. I want this to look like one nice smooth edge. It's important to always, after you use your tile saw, to go, this is always the second step, is the diamond bit. Because the diamond saw blade will leave very large indentions if you're not very careful when you're using it and you haven't had very much practice. Okay, now to do the top end. I'm not going to bother with this side. I'll leave it as it is. But I'll do this from here down. You always want to keep your rock wet that you're working on because you don't want to breathe in that dust. This side has some natural fragmentation to it, so I'm just working it down to the more solid stone in the center. I think that cracking right there may go all the way through. And it looks like the more I work it, the worse it gets. So I'm going to leave that there as is. So we'll be polishing this right here. And then we have this edge. I just want to smooth that edge out. Soften it up a little bit. I'm just working it back and forth and over the top. Making sure there's no cracking or any bad spots. And it will polish out nice and smoothly. And this one is, I would say, done. And I will take it and wash it off in the sink before moving on to the next step. So remember I said this side isn't going to get messed with, it'll be the base. So we're just going to do this side. And believe it or not, it's actually harder to do the flat surface than it is a rounded surface. Because the rounded surface you're working over, back and forth. But I don't need it to be perfect. It's just for me to look at. Now if I was selling it, I would make sure it was as perfect as I can make it. And it may not show right away when you're using your lower numbered grit. But the higher quality grit that you're going to be using, the more the cracks, the dents, the dings, the divots, they will all come out and they will show very brightly. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting any of the man-made markings out. I can tell that that's a saw blade marking. And I'm going to be okay with leaving the rest. Okay, now I'm just going over the whole thing, making sure I got a smooth transition, that I don't have any spots that are really going to catch me when I go to use the higher grit sandpaper. Until my Dremel's losing power. I'm going to have to get my other Dremel out. I'll go ahead and do that real quick. This one's quite a bit quieter and quite a bit more powerful. Oh, do you see it sparking? That's good news. The sparking means that it's getting harder towards the center. There's a lot of fracturing on this bone. Alright, that one's about as good as I can get it. So let me turn off my Dremel real quick. So you can see that there is some small cell structure showing. Not much though. This one would not be as valuable as this one. This one has much nicer cell structure. You can actually see the colors in there. Whereas this one, it looks like we got some clear quartz, maybe calcite, and there is quite a bit of hematite in this. You can tell by the water and the staining it causes on skin. So the next step, we'll go and start using the Dremel pads that I made in the last video. If you haven't watched that video, it's all about how to make pads that you can reuse over and over and over and over again. And then all you have to do is glue new pieces of wet dry sandpaper to the top. But they're easy on, they're the easy lock. And I go through in detail how to make these. So we're going to start the next one. We're going to start with a 100, and then we'll go up from there. Okay, so one of the things you need to remember when polishing rocks is each stage builds on the next stage, and the less attention to detail you pay in the earlier stages, the worse it's going to look when you're all finished. And for that, I have an example here. This is a very nice cab. It has a very nice polish all the way around, front and back. But this one, I wasn't paying as close attention to detail, and I didn't get this domed correctly. So I'm going to have to go back over and fix it. But I only noticed this indentation here when I got to, say, 600 grit. So it's very important, it's very key to pay close attention when you're doing this. So I just can't stress enough how important it is that when you're doing your polishing, that when you're working with the smaller grits, this is 100 grit right here, that you work really hard to make sure that it's exactly where it needs to be. And every time you go over this, after you're using each level of grit, what you're doing is you're making little tiny scratch marks. And every time that you go over it with a new set of grit, you're going to take away the scratch marks from the previous grit, and you're going to add new ones from that grit. So the more steps you can take in going over, the better. Now, you can really see where there was some indentations that I left and the natural cracking and fracturing of the stone. So I'm just going to go over that as much as I can and try to work out as much as I can with the lower grade grit before I move on to the next spot. Try to keep it always wet. It makes your sandpaper go farther. And last longer. And again, you're not breathing in that dust. And I'm just moving in small circular motions, and I'm just using the one edge of the polishing pad. And I can see that this side is going to have some indentations and fracturing as well. So I'm really not going to worry about it too much. Like I said, this is just for me. I'm not selling it. However, if I was, I would make sure I was and worked over all the spots that have any indentations. Doing the edging now. So there's a nice smooth transition from one edge to the other. And you will notice that the more you polish, the higher the grit you get into, the less dust you're going to see, and the more shine is going to come through. I think that's good for that one. I'm just working it until it's all right about the same color. I get the edges nice and square. Just going back and getting the edges nice. And this looks good. It's all about the same color. Okay, so in between each stage of polish, I'm going to go and rinse off the rock just so that I don't cross-contaminate with other grit. So you will notice that this will go by a lot faster. The higher the grit, the less time we need to spend on the stone. But the lower grits all the way until we get to about 320, we'll have to spend about the same amount of time on. I'm just going to go ahead and get this wet. I already got this one wet, and I'm working with the 220 now. Okay, on to the next grit. Okay, now I have the 320 in, and we will polish with this. They're starting to take a really nice shine, starting to repel the water instead of soaking it in like it is on this side. Okay, so the next step is actually 600 grit. And because this pad was used last night and is a little wore out, I'm going to go ahead and replace it with this, and I'm going to show you just how that's done. You just need to take a little bit of rubber cement. You put a little bit on the back of the paper. Like that's way too much. And then you let it dry for a minute, and then you put some on the back of, or the top of the Dremel pad. Really got a lot. I don't need that much. And you just let it dry for a few seconds and then put it together. So that way when you make them together, they stick together just a little bit better. So then you just stick them together, smush them. Maybe apply a little bit of pressure. You can take the old one off, but there's no sense in doing that. You can just go ahead and write over the top of it. And one of the tricks that I do is on the top, on the grit side, I write what the grit is with a highlighter. It doesn't affect your polishing at all, and it helps you to be able to see what you're working with. So once this, so it's dried, it's not going to move, and we're going to go ahead and do the 600 on it. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 1000 grit. Get my rock wet. Okay, now you can start to see where all the indentions are. Okay, so that's a good reason why you want to make sure when you're polishing at a lower stage grit that you are getting all of those marks out. I had no idea that those were there until just now. Since I'm not selling it and it's just for me, I'm not going to worry about it this time. But if I was selling it, I would go back probably all the way down to 100 and start over. So I think if I would have stayed at the 600, I think if I would have stayed at the 600 grit and went to polish, you wouldn't be able to see all of this. I'm gonna try one thing, and that's going to a 50,000 diamond paste polish on here, and we'll see if that works in and gets out any of that. Otherwise, we'll just have to go right into the polishing. So I have my easy off here. You just hold down that. Oop. Just hold that down and then use this to go in and open it up. And then you just stick this in there, clamp it down. All I'm doing is putting polish on the rock. This Dremel's not on yet. Just let that sit there. This did look really good at 600. I kind of wish I would have left it there. Okay, now I'm only turning it up to 4,000. Because it's a very thin canvas and it's got 50,000 grit diamond polish built into it. It is helping a little bit, I think. I think I'm going to turn it up to 6. I think this did help a lot. You can't see all the scratches anymore. too bad. Okay, so from the 50,000 grit diamond polishing paste, this is what we got. And then you can still kind of make out a few of those indention scratches, which is rather disappointing, but not a big deal. It's just for me. Now we could have gone through 5 or 6 more steps as far as the sanding compounds go, but the next step we're going to do is we're going to polish with ZAM. ZAM is a silver polishing compound, but it works really good for what rocks we're doing here. Since this is a good, nice, hard stone, it will take a nice polish with the ZAM. I have my ZAM in mineral oil to help it to not get completely rock hard. When I bought it, it must have been pretty old. So I'm going to be applying it with this pad that I made from a terry cloth towel. I'm just going to connect these together. I'm going to put it in the Dremel first. It's just easier that way. When I put my tools in the Dremel, I always leave just a tiny bit sticking out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the Dremel on. Oh, maybe it's decided to take a break. It must have got too warm. So I'll just unplug it for a little while and I'll be back. Okay, so we are almost to the very last step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the drill, I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to pick up some of this Okay, so I went ahead and I picked up some of the ZAM onto my brush. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it just so in case it gets knocked over, it doesn't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my Dremel and I'm going to turn it on low. And I'm just going to go over. I guess I'll have to turn it on high. And I'm just going over the whole thing. You can hear my puppies in the background. Sorry about that. They're very little and they're in a kennel to keep them out of trouble while I'm making my videos. Quiet. So what I'm doing is I'm going over it at a lower speed, and then I will come back Okay, that's all nice and coated. Okay, both pieces are coated pretty nicely. I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, and then I'm going to come back and buff it off with a buffing pad. Okay, so the buffing pad is just a piece of felt. I'm going to go ahead and buff it out now. So I've gone through and cleaned them all up, and they are done. Nice polish to them. You can see this one has some nice red colors. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. Not too good. Very, very tiny cells with the brown cell structure around it. Not as appealing or as wanted as something with the black lines around the cells, like this one. This one doesn't quite have black, but it does have much better cell structure. You can see the multicolored cells. Nice pink color. I hope you got something out of this video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And I hope you see that you can do this from home. So I want to say thank you for watching today. I'd love to know what you're working on, what you're struggling with, or how I can help you. So go ahead and leave that in the comments below. Yeah, I love making these videos because I'm passionate about everyone being able to enjoy, regardless of finances, the art of rock polishing and lapidary. I hope you subscribe and check out my Facebook page, Dremel Lapidary by Kirsten Safford Art, and make sure you enter the prize drawing for 20 slabs of lapidary material plus some Gembone. I'll leave the links below in the description, and keep on grinding.